Have you ever heard a sound that shouldn't exist? A voice that hums where no one should be alive? What if I told you that 5 women, identical, silent, barefoot, were once found deep in the Montana woods and then vanished overnight? There are no records, no graves, no trace, only one photograph half-burned, with a single name written on the back. Anna the 6th, November 1978, Platwillow County, Montana. That night, the blizzard came earlier than anyone expected. Snow fell like a wall, the wind carried it sideways, and the forest turned dead and white. But Harold Lynch refused to turn back. He knew these woods, every ridge and hollow. He'd hunted here his entire life. By late afternoon, the sky went completely dark. The compass spun uselessly. His skis sank deep in the crusted snow. He moved almost blindly until, through the swirling white, he saw something impossible. A thin gray line of smoke, straight and steady, rising above the treetops. No one lived out here. The map showed nothing but forest. And yet the smoke kept climbing, stubborn and deliberate, as if someone wanted to be found. Harold reached the hill and saw it. A roof sticking out from the snow. Not a cabin, not really. More like a house buried into the slope, half underground. A single metal pipe poked through the ice, trembling in the wind. He brushed frost from the door and knocked. Silence. He tried again. Nothing. When he pressed the handle, the latch gave way, and a wave of warm air drifted out. First, nothing strange. Wooden walls, the smell of smoke, a few old objects. Then, from deeper inside, a faint sound. Not music, not a voice. Something in between, a low, wordless humming. He took a few careful steps. The flashlight trembled in his hand, cutting through the dark hallway. In the next room, 5 women sat on the floor, all wearing gray dresses, all barefoot, their faces pale, waxy, almost identical. They rocked in perfect rhythm, humming the same single tone, eyes half closed, as if caught in one shared dream. It looked like one woman multiplied 5 times in different ages. Harold froze. He cleared his throat, trying to speak. "Hello?" he whispered. No one answered until the youngest, maybe 14, slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were wide, light, and empty. She stared at him as if looking at something that shouldn't exist. The others kept rocking. The humming grew sharper, almost a scream. Harold stepped back. The air in the room changed, heavy, metallic, wrong. The smell of smoke disappeared. He turned and ran. Behind him, something hit the floor. A dull, heavy sound, but he didn't look back. He burst outside, the door slamming shut behind him as the wind howled. By morning, the storm was over. Harold was found near the road, half frozen, whispering fragments of what he'd seen. 5 women, same faces. They looked, but didn't see. Sheriff Douglas Hanson and 2 deputies followed his trail. They found the cabin, a few miles from the northern forest line. The chimney was still warm, but the inside, cold, empty, silent. Ashes in the stove, a bowl of porridge left unfinished. A strange metallic odor in the air. On the walls, only dark rectangles where photographs had once hung. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, almost all gone. Only one lay on the floor near the fireplace, covered in gray ash. A young woman, delicate features looking slightly to the side, as if someone had called her in the moment the photo was taken. On the back, written in pencil, one uneven line, Anna the 6th. The sheriff arrived before sunrise. The storm had cleared, but the air still carried the smell of ice and smoke. Deputy Ford found the cabin first. The same one Harold described, half buried in snow, the chimney blackened, the door cracked open. They entered carefully, rifles ready. What they found didn't look like a crime scene. No blood, no struggle, just absence. Beds neatly made, plates stacked on a table, still warm to the touch. Someone had been here only hours ago. Sheriff Hanson walked through the narrow hallway, the wooden floor creaking under his boots. In the main room, he saw it. A single chair overturned beside the fireplace. On the wall, faint marks where photographs had once hung in tight rows. He counted the nails. Dozens. Maybe 100. Every one empty. A notebook lay half-hidden under the ashes. Old, with a leather cover, the first pages soaked through and frozen together. Inside, short sentences written in a tight, deliberate hand. Dates going back 20 years. He flipped through carefully, whispering as he read. First generation complete. Subject 12 survived cold exposure. Anna's breathing steady. Eyes luminous under low light. Ford looked at him. Jesus, what is this, sir? Hansen didn't answer. He kept reading. The final line before the ink ran out said, "When they glow, we'll know the blood is pure." In the back room, they found a trapdoor beneath a rug. The hinges were stiff, frozen in place. When they pried it open, warm air rushed up, mixed with something else, copper, decay. A narrow staircase led into the earth. The basement was lined with jars. Rows and rows of glass containers, fogged from the inside. Inside each, something small, gray, twisted, like shapes that once were human. Some had hair. Some had teeth. Hansen stepped closer, the beam of his flashlight trembling. A tag dangled from one jar, Specimen A3, female. At the far end of the room stood a single metal bed. Chains hung from the frame, the leather straps still buckled. A woman's shoe lay beneath it, small, old-fashioned, covered in dust. On the wall above the bed, a child's handprint, smeared in something dark. Ford whispered, "This isn't a house, it's a lab." They sealed the cabin and called the bureau. By the time the first agents arrived 2 days later, the site had changed. The jars gone, the notebook missing. Even the prints in the snow had vanished overnight, covered by a fresh layer that fell from a clear sky. Only one thing remained, a photograph, wedged behind a beam near the stairs. A man in his 40s, eyes sharp, wearing a military coat with a faded emblem. Underneath, written in the same thin handwriting as the notebook, Dr. Abraham Lovell, Project Northern Line. The Bureau analyzed what little they managed to recover from the cabin: fragments of paper, a few samples of ash, and the remains of a burned notebook. Under ultraviolet light, faint words appeared between the scorched fibers. It wasn't a diary. It was a research log. The first entry dated back to 1954, signed by Dr. Abraham Lovell, Air Force Medical Division. Title: Human Adaptation to Cold Environments. He wrote about testing the limits of endurance in sub-zero conditions: skin reaction, metabolism, oxygen deprivation. There was nothing unusual until the word volunteers disappeared from the reports, replaced by subjects. Then, abruptly, the official entries stopped. No record of resignation, no transfer. Dr. Lovell simply vanished from the military database in 1956, along with his wife and 2 daughters. The next surviving page of the journal picked up a year later, written in the same meticulous handwriting but in a different tone. Colder, detached. It read, "The mountain preserves them. The body hardens here. The mind becomes quiet. They no longer fear the snow." Over time, the language changed completely. Equations and data gave way to strange observations. Lines about purity, lineage, and the chosen flesh. He began calling his daughters the carriers. At first, the notes described simple endurance training, exposure to cold, fasting, breath control. But the next pages blurred the line between experiment and worship. The children endure without complaint. Their eyes reflect the northern light. The younger one prays even when I'm silent. The process must continue. Only through their wombs will the line survive. The handwriting grew uneven, almost frantic. Paragraphs spiraled into fragments. Replication achieved. Anna responds best to isolation. Their features align. The same symmetry, the same silence. Then, one line written across 2 pages, carved deep into the paper. When they start to glow, we will know the blood is pure. Investigators traced Lovell's background: born in Kansas, educated in Chicago, recruited into a classified Arctic survival project. After his disappearance, several colleagues reported receiving letters from him, pages filled with sketches of human skulls, veins drawn as constellations, and a recurring symbol. 6 circles forming a spiral. They thought he'd gone insane. But in one letter, he mentioned something else: the Hollow Creek Refuge, a place where the cold never ends. No one ever found that location on any map. By 1960, all contact with the Lovell family ceased. Neighbors reported that the doctor's cabin near the border stood empty, windows boarded, the ground around it frozen year-round. Then, in 1978, 20 years later, the smoke appeared again. The same smoke Harold Lynch saw in the storm. The Bureau's final analysis stated, "All recovered evidence suggests Dr. Lovell continued human experimentation in isolation, using direct descendants as subjects. The number of individuals unknown." But one agent, reviewing the material late that night, noticed something the others missed. On the back of one photograph from the file, faint pencil marks formed a date: March 12, 1979. That was 3 months after the cabin raid. And below the date, 4 words, almost invisible under the dust: "Anna gave birth again."